Students, are you worried that the only yearbook photo the school has of you is your student ID photo? Did we use your freshman photo last year and now you're a junior? Take note, students who do not have their photos taken for the yearbook are asked to stop by Fuller Hall between 8:30 and 3 o'clock on Wednesday, January 20th, or Thursday, January 21st. Mr. Legge will also be set up on the stage to take studio portraits. Students who were not happy with their photo taken in the fall are also welcome to have another photo taken. Students will have the option of purchasing prints from their session. Please contact Mr. Legge at slegge@stjacademy.org with any questions. Attention writers and artists. Be sure to keep thinking about your submissions for the Clear River Review, the Academy's journal for literature and the arts. You may submit your poems, essays, and stories, as well as your black and white visual artwork, including intaglio prints and photographs, between now and February 1st. The submission form is available at bit.ly/clearriver, which you can also access via quick links on the Academy webpage. You may also contact Mrs. McKenzie or Ms. Drew for more information by inquiring at clear.river@stjlabs.com. The fashion program is seeking models of all body types and gender expressions for this year's fashion show. Please stop by Morse 201 on your cohort day after school. Sign-ups will be Tuesday, 1:19 for the white cohort, and Wednesday, 1:20 for the green cohort. If you were signed up as a model last year, we'd love to have you back. Keep an eye on your email. If you have any questions, please email Ms. Chiro at emma.chiro@stjlabs.com. Good morning, juniors and seniors. Do you have a study hall D or E block? Are you bored or don't have enough work to fill that study hall? Would you like to earn a half credit in PE? If you answered yes to these questions, then Mr. Holden has a deal for you. If you are interested in being more active during D or E block and would like to be able to go snowshoe and play games outdoors, then go see Mr. Murphy in guidance and we will work with you to get you moving during the school day and have a blast with Mr. Holden. Happy birthday today to Kaylee Weaver. Have a great day.
Good morning, St. Johnsbury Academy. I'm pleased that we're here together on this cold January morning, snowy January morning, to celebrate together the holiday in honor of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. We're so fortunate to have a special guest with us today who's going to share his experiences with Dr. King himself, and I will introduce him in just a moment. Many across the country today have paused to reflect on the life of Dr. King, this extraordinary leader. And I want to start this week of reflection on his legacy by not assuming that everyone knows who he was and what he did. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in 1929, the son of a minister in Atlanta, Georgia, the Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. He spent his childhood in Atlanta, in an area of Atlanta that provided some relative normalcy for him. He attended high school in Atlanta, and then at 15 years old, he went to the historically black Morehouse College and graduated in 1948. He did work at a theological seminary in Pennsylvania, and then at Boston University. He served as a pastor in the Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama, from 1954 to 1960, and then from 1960 until his death in 1968, he was a pastor with his father of Ebenezer Baptist Church back in his old neighborhood in Atlanta. When he was in Montgomery from 1955 and 1956, he helped to lead the year-long Montgomery bus boycotts, which some of you will recognize were what followed the famous arrest of Rosa Parks. Dr. King was the foremost leader of the civil rights movement, and he led nonviolent campaigns of resistance across the South. He was often arrested and jailed, most notably spending time in a jail in Birmingham, Alabama, where he wrote his famous letter from a Birmingham jail. In the summer of 1963, Dr. King led the March on Washington, where he delivered his, again, famous "I Have a Dream" speech. And his work mobilizing fights for freedom continued and culminated in the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and then he continued after that to work for freedom and against poverty and oppression until he was assassinated in April of 1968. About 4 days after his death, Representative John Conyers of Michigan, who was in the House, submitted legislation to make Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday a national holiday. He kept introducing it every year until it was finally passed in the 1980s. It took about 20 years. That brings us to today. I'm delighted to introduce you to a man who met and spent time with Dr. King in the 50s and 60s, Dr. Reverend Robert A. Potter. Reverend Potter, who is the grandfather of our beloved Jonathan Potter, serves as interim pastor of Monadnock Congregational Church in New Hampshire, a former professor and dean of students at the University of Hartford. He has served churches in California and Florida, Massachusetts, and Vermont, including up the road in Peacham. He also lives on and operates a Christmas tree farm in Wheelock, and he writes a column for the North Star Monthly. Please join me in offering a warm welcome to Reverend Bob Potter.
Thank you, Dr. Howell, and thank you for inviting me to tell you about my friendship with Martin Luther King. A first grader recently asked me if I also was a friend of President Lincoln's. And I said, I'm just not that old. I said I would not be 100 years old for 15 years, and that was not because I didn't feel like I was Lincoln's friend, but I felt like I knew him and loved him too. I first met Martin Luther King when I was a student at Earlham College in Indiana, far away from my Connecticut home. And he was a speaker in chapel that day. A very familiar setting like this with hundreds of students. And he called to say that he would be late. And I was the student in charge of chapel. And he called to say, fill in for me, will you? So for half an hour, I did just that. This was a Quaker college, a Society of Friends college, so I could have just let them sit there in silence, because Quakers and Friends, that would be a common experience for them. But it really was much easier to talk. Since I did that, I wanted to do that for a living, and I knew what Martin Luther King was all about. The greatest way to win is through love. Sometimes tough love. And he understood that in its complexities in a brilliant way. Violence just doesn't work. And we saw that all too recently. Well, he thanked me for waiting, and I told him that chapel attendance was required, and nobody would dare leave, even if it was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And he laughed, and he put his arm around me and said, "Let's go, Bob." And that was a great morning. I was 22 years old, and it was as fresh in my mind as yesterday's morning. A second meeting was a couple of years later when I met him at the railroad station in New Haven, Connecticut. He had come to spend a week with us there, and when I drove him in my 1955 Volkswagen to the campus of Yale University Divinity School, where I was a student, I got the job of picking him up because I was president of the United Church Student Ministers Group. We talked like longtime friends. He'd remembered his visit with me some years before that, and I never forgot him. And looking back, I think, wow, was I ever blessed? Was I ever blessed? And we bonded. And that friendship lasted right up until the time he was murdered. I sat 6 feet away from his feet on an evening-long session at Yale that week, and I got to tell you, friends, he had an aura about him that was unforgettable. I could feel his commitment, his strength, his love, his courage, his love of life, his passion and his intellect. He wasn't perfect, which is why I loved him even more. He was so human. But those were qualities that, in a friend now, some 50 years later, can speak up with a little something down here. He said that night to us that human beings are not ever to be bought or sold. Never. Then nor now. That we are equal, and we have equal rights and civil rights, and those rights are for everybody. And that great vision is why finally, these years, the nation has stopped to honor that vision. It was out of his high values that the Civil Rights Bill was passed and America was on its way to live out some good stuff. We have a long way to go in America. It doesn't take me to tell you that this morning. But he said it's up to us. The time is now. And I feel that same urgency this morning that I feel in living out his memory. I do have to say, without getting into the specifics of politics, what a joy it was to see Georgia elect his successor at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Pastor Warnock, to be the first black senator from the South. And Pastor Warnock told some of us the other day that he still was going to fly back from Washington and be in his pulpit every Sunday. Sometimes it's a long way to get to our goals, but they have a curious way of finding their way. Well, in the morning, we had breakfast together with some of the faculty and a few students at Yale, and he insisted on being with us students. Great teacher and minister that he was and is. He said, "We were the future," and I say that to you today. I poured his coffee, and he said, "Thank you." And I said, "My pleasure." And we talked for a while at that little seminar, and later he poured my coffee. I can still taste it. And I said, "Thank you." And he said, "Oh, my pleasure." You can never say thanks often enough. His legacy of love and gratitude for the little things of life is forever. I thought of all this in years later as a dean of students at my university when I led 4,000 faculty and students in a peaceful protest march down the main street of Hartford, Connecticut. I had the courage to do this after the police shot and killed 4 students at Kent State in Ohio. Even with a broken heart, you have to carry on. Even with a broken heart, you have to carry on. Perhaps that's something we need to carry with us these days, these troubled days. The last time Dr. King and I were together was a few years later at the commencement exercises in Springfield, Massachusetts, Springfield College. And Dr. King gave an address. I gave the prayers that afternoon, and during the recessional, the way out, he put his hand on my shoulder. It's kind of right here. I can still feel it. I can still feel it. And he thanked me for, quote, some great prayers, and I, too, put my arm around him and thanked him for an awesome, inspiring address. He had eyes and a warm, strong smile that just lit up the whole field. He leaned in close to me and said, you can say anything, Bob, but doing it is the test of what you're all about. As you know, he said it standing kind of right there. He said, you know, character, as we know, character counts. We got to preach that. We got to preach that character counts. Then, as always, the word of encouragement. He said, hey, I'm glad you're working on your doctorate. Always the great encourager. When he was murdered in 1968, while supporting the garbage collectors and trying to get them a raise in Memphis, Tennessee, I sobbed and cried most of the night. I can still feel the tears running down my face. That was in April, and Robert Kennedy was killed in June. And the flag, when I did finally finish the doctor, was at half-mast. But you carry on, I think I said, and he said, with a broken heart. We were brothers in the faith, a faith in the future, a faith in your future, and I knew then that my life and the life of this land that I loved and you love would never, ever be the same. Years later, standing before his stone statue in Washington, I thought how strange it is to see him etched in stone. The real need is for him and his values to be etched in our hearts and in our heads. The statue is beautiful, but of course it just doesn't convey the personal power of deep and profound love and the call for justice and his awesome personality. And then I remember the famous quote of Martin. He wanted me to call him Martin. I can call him Martin today because he'd like that. The moral arch of history is bent toward justice. Now, I get that. The moral arc of history is bent toward justice. And therein lies our hope. That, my friends, must be our task in a wanting and weary world. So today, Martin would have you hear these words. Oh, he was a great speaker. I have a dream. I have a dream someday, somebody somewhere, sometime will pick up my work and my love. And what we stand for will live forever. So for you, I have a dream that this beloved Academy family will honor his place in history, and that you're living and learning and loving in this place will make you and this precious world all the better for your being here and there. The highest values that have ever been revealed to humankind are his legacy and his gift to you and to me and to the world. may you commit this day to live out those values to the very fullest. If you do, it'll be a good day. Keep doing, and keep dreaming. Keep doing and keep dreaming, and thank you for the honor of being with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Potter. That's such a gift for us today. Thank you. I hope you all will think about this message. The rest of our week, we will have chapel every morning. We'll hear from a student tomorrow. We'll hear from folks who are going to describe some of the service projects that we'll be doing for the rest of the week. So we'll see you here tomorrow morning, and thank you again so much to Reverend Potter for sharing his stories and his message. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.